I am Natalie Green, a 32-year-old senior director of marketing at Tech Vision. I showed up at my cousin Jessica's wedding at the Plaza Hotel by myself today. When I first put on my navy blue dress, it seemed ideal, but now it makes me feel alone. I walked into the ballroom. Talks were quiet. She was unable to locate a date. Kimberly, one of my sisters, whispered to her husband. Mom looked at me with that typical pitying expression, while Dad hardly looked up. As I went to a corner and fought back tears, the judgment of my extended family fell heavy on me. Before I could finish this story, the great doors abruptly shot open, turning heads everywhere. Tell me where you're watching from, please. Hit the like and subscribe buttons after leaving your location in the comments section below. If you've ever experienced family judgment, I promise you'll want to watch what transpires as this unexpected visitor makes a big impact. I was always the responsible sibling growing up in the Boston suburbs. Early on, my parents, Richard and Diana Green, made it apparent that Kimberly was their ideal kid. She had a natural social grace that attracted others to her, and she always received the lead straight A's in her dancing recitals without appearing to study. Why are you unable to emulate your sister more became the background music for my early years. Kimberly's prom queen crowning, when I made the honor roll, my parents threw her a spectacular party. At supper, I quickly obtained a nice job. When Bradley Thompson, the son of my father's golf buddy, proposed to Kimberly, for days, my mother shed tears of joy. When I was hired by Tech Vision, my ideal job, at Sunday supper, someone casually acknowledged my achievement. I put a lot of effort into my studies at Boston University, where I earned honors in marketing. I began concentrating on my career as a junior marketing associate at Tech Vision. Over the course of 8 years, I rose to the position of senior marketing director. Just last quarter, my efforts boosted client engagement by 30%. My job became my identity and my refuge. Alex came next. We dated for 3 years, and until I found out about his 6-month affair with a coworker, I felt he might be the one. He said, "I didn't mean for it to happen," as though it somehow lessened the hurt of the betrayal. We just got in touch. The treachery wasn't even the worst part. It was recognizing my blindness. Healing and putting work before dating had been the main goals of building a future with someone who had already checked out during the previous 8 months. I refused setups from well-meaning friends, stayed late for work, and poured myself into projects. Cousin Jessica just announced her engagement at the same time that I was promoted to senior marketing director. When we were kids, Jessica and I spent a lot of time together at our grandparents' lake house, making sandcastles and watching fireflies. As we became older, we took different routes. I moved into marketing, while she pursued fashion design. Although we continued to text each other on our birthdays and occasionally go out to coffee, time and distance had weakened our once strong relationship. My stomach nodded as her wedding invitation showed the dreaded +1 option. I thought about asking a friend to go on a date with me, but I decided against it. I only went shopping for my dress, picking out a sophisticated yet modest style. An A-line in navy blue with delicate beading that complemented my green eyes and red hair without becoming overtly noticeable. Victoria gave Jessica some lingerie at the bridal shower, which was a unique form of torment. She then gave me a stern look. Maybe we ought to put some aside for Natalie in case she ever needs it. With my cheeks flaming, I attempted a smile as the crowd burst into laughing. For aesthetic reasons, my buddy Olivia recommended using an escort service. At our monthly supper, she remarked this while sipping wine. "Nobody would be aware," I said. "I know. And I'm done acting like someone I'm not in order to appease my family." I got up early the morning of the wedding and paid close attention to how I looked. In front of the mirror, I put on my dress, put on natural makeup that accentuated my eyes, and arranged my hair in loose waves. I reminded myself of my value and worked on smiling confidently. By yourself, you're complete, smart, and accomplished. I tried to believe it as I whispered to my mirror. Anxiety pervaded the taxi trip to the Plaza Hotel. As the Manhattan skyline passed by the window, my hands fumbled with my clutch. The taxi arrived at the hotel's opulent entrance, I paused for a second before going outside. I thought about telling the driver to take me home so I could make up an emergency. The fare was paid by me. Inhaling deeply, he approached the elaborate doors by himself. Despite my nervousness, I was astounded by the ballroom at the Plaza Hotel. Cream and blush were bathed in a warm glow from the crystal chandelier, bouquets of flowers. A polished dance floor was surrounded by round tables, each with ornate centerpieces and beautiful china. As guests mixed, a string quartet performed softly in the corner. There was a ripple of whispered chatter as I walked in. Uncle Gregory didn't bother to drop his voice because he had already had 3 drinks and his face was red. At her age, she is still unmarried. Isn't it shame no one with whom to share all that knowledge? And triumphant, instantly swooped in. Natalie, sweetheart, again. Alone. I know a number of men who are eligible. I could provide you with. My son is a dental hygienist, twice divorced, but now quite stable, or the nephew of my neighbor. They say age is just a number, yet he's only 22. I muttered something vague. Regards. Looking around the room for a discreet place or a welcoming face. Rather, I saw Kimberly coming toward me, looking stunning in a pink designer dress that was likely more expensive than my rent each month. She had an intricate updo on her blonde hair. Diamonds sparkled around her throat and earrings. Bradley hovered close by, looking at his phone with the disinterested look of someone who would much rather play golf. Natalie, Kimberly gave me 2 cheek kisses. It's a useful dress. Reusing at work is a wise decision. She cast a noticeable glance about. No one wanting to be a +1 could be found. Before I could answer, I told Mom you'd probably come alone. With her silver-streaked hair styled to perfection, my mother looked sophisticated in slate blue. You look good. Natalie, honey. She had the same pitying look in her eyes as when I had failed to make the 9th grade cheer squad. Being independent is totally okay. A spouse is not necessary for everyone to feel whole. The precise opposite was implied by her tone. A busy woman carrying a clipboard and a Bluetooth earpiece, the wedding planner came over. I'll bring you to your table. Miss Green. She led me across the room to what was obviously the singles table, which was a jumble of the recently divorced cousin Travis, who already smelled of booze, the elderly widow, Gertrude Jenkins, and her 16-year-old cousin Parker, who is riveted to his gaming device. Well done on your promotion. With her hearing aid whistling, Gertrude yelled, According to your mother, you're quite busy at work. Does that explain why you haven't yet found a husband? I grabbed my glass of water. In the process, they almost knocked over the champagne flute. I take pleasure in my work, to avoid going into too much detail. I took a long sip and managed. The ceremony was lovely in its own right. As she joined Tyler at the altar, Jessica looked stunning as she glided down the aisle in a bespoke gown. Their vows were heartfelt and intimate. Speaking of collaboration and unwavering support, I was very delighted for her, despite the fact that during cocktail hour, a glimmer of sadness crept into my chest. I took a position next to the appetizer table and piled a little dish high with spanakopita and stuffed mushrooms. I had something to think about besides my obvious lack of company thanks to the food. Natalie, when will you settle down? I was cornered by the shrimp exhibit by Linda, a relative of my mother. You're not getting any younger with your biological clock. Are there any upcoming opportunities? Uncle Robert inquired while assisting himself to a scallop covered in bacon. My golf buddy's son recently got divorced, you know. Though a little older, he is well established, is the owner of 3 auto shops, by the 6th uninvited proposal for my romantic life. In order to stabilize my breathing at the marble sink, I withdrew to the women's room and locked myself in a stall. I swiped a tissue at the beginnings of tears. I'm careful not to get my mascara on anything, I said to my reflection. Get it together. You are not defined by their opinions. From the relative seclusion of a padded bench in the bathroom, I contacted Olivia. They're behaving as though my solitary status is a fatal illness. I voiced my displeasure. I recall their responses. Talk about them rather than yourself. You're catching flights while they're catching feelings about your personal choices. Olivia assured me. Remain resilient, equipped with phony self-assurance. I went back to the front desk. Kimberly caught me right away. I'm holding a flute of champagne. Really? You ought to put yourself out there. Even more so. Are those dating apps anything you've tried these days? Even those with difficult situations can find a mate. I made an effort to grin. Right now, I'm concentrating on my career. When they are unable to locate a partner, all unmarried ladies claim that. She patted my arm in response, seeming empathetic. Over the speakers, the DJ's words echoed loudly. Every single woman. It's time to toss the bouquet. His gaze lingered on me as he looked around the crowd. Ladies, don't be shy. 3 and physically led me to the group of unmarried ladies who were gathered there, primarily Jessica's college pals and younger cousins. Natalie, go for it. Perhaps your luck will change if you grab the bouquet. I was shoved forward by Aunt Victoria. As Jessica got ready to throw her bouquet, I staggered into place, feeling all eyes on me. The audience suddenly became quiet. Jessica stopped in the middle of her spin, holding the bouquet tightly. The string quartet stumbled in their performance of Pachelbel's Canon when the ballroom's enormous double doors swung open suddenly. A tall, imposing man in a well-tailored charcoal suit stood in the doorway. His jawline was sharp enough to break glass, and his dark hair was arranged in a way that seemed effortlessly classy, confidently, as if evaluating a boardroom instead of interrupting a wedding reception. He looked around the room. Sebastian Reed. Is that right? A loud whisper came from someone. To my right. The tech billionaire. Why is he in this place? A second voice whispered. Tyler and Jessica looked at each other bewilderedly from the front of the room. Obviously, they hadn't anticipated such a high-profile visitor. Sebastian's eyes systematically scanned the room before catching a glimpse of something and locking with mine. Recognition. His face lit up with interest. The crowd parted in front of him like the Red Sea as he walked across the floor with deliberate steps. As he came closer, his eyes never left mine, and my heart pounded against my ribs. He came to a stop just in front of me. A stop. Even in high heels. His 6'2" frame dwarfs my 5'6". He had brilliant blue-gray eyes, astute and somewhat amused. He clasped my hand in his touch warm and unexpectedly soft, before I could comprehend what was happening. Sorry for being late. My love. The traffic was terrible. He spoke in a deep voice that was audible to guests adjacent, with a faint rasp. He kissed my cheek tenderly, leaning closer. Sandalwood and something special to him are subtly blended in his cologne. I went cold. I was stunned and confused, unable to speak. Kimberly's mouth actually fell open. From the corner of my eye, her flawlessly applied lipstick formed a humorous O of astonishment. I watched as my mother straightened up, her formerly pitiful countenance giving way to a bright smile. Participate. In my ear, Sebastian whispered. The warmth of his breath caressed my skin. You appeared to be in need of rescue. Later, I will explain. My thoughts were racing with potential outcomes. Was this a joke or an error? A complex hoax? However, there was something genuine about his unwavering gaze that gave me a lifeline when I was drowning in family criticism. I was afraid you wouldn't make it. I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded as I heard myself pronounce it. He missed this and grinned, his white teeth gleaming against his pale skin. Never. My waist was encircled by his arm. It's a possessive and protective gesture. With curiosity enhancing her bridal glow, Jessica walked toward her. It didn't say you were bringing such a high-profile guest. Natalie. Sebastian reached out to her. Sebastian read, Congratulations on your lovely nuptials. I apologize for being late. International business. Give Rahman a call. I was on the +1 list, Natalie told me, but she wasn't sure I'd arrive in time. Any of Natalie's friends is invited, of course. Jessica gestured to the wedding coordinator as she gushed. The seating arrangement will need to be changed in a matter of minutes. I was escorted to the VIP area close to the bridal party from the singles table. As we walked, Sebastian's hand stayed at the small of my back. For someone who was practically a stranger, there was a strangely comfortable warmth. The mentality of my family changed dramatically and instantly. Then Kimberly appeared at our table. Her face was a strained attempt at casualness. You didn't say you were seeing anyone, much less someone so successful. Natalie, you didn't inquire. I answered plainly, with a newfound sense of assurance. What exactly do you do? Sebastian Bradley scowled next to Kimberly as she rubbed her eyelashes. My mom showed up, almost pushing Kimberly out of the way. Our smart one has always been Natalie. Instead of complaining about my lack of social graces in comparison to Kimberly, she told Sebastian, as though she had spent years proudly announcing this fact. Boston University's top student. As we sat down, Sebastian leaned in. Let's set up some basics, he whispered. What is the duration of our relationship? 3 months. We met where 3 months. It seems plausible. I returned the whisper. Not very recent. Not so serious that I would have told everyone about you. Excellent. In March, we met at the Wilson Charity Gala. Her marketing insights impressed me. Le Bernardin served supper on the first date. Startled by the detail, I blinked. How are you aware I'm a marketing professional? His lips curled into a faint smile. On the gift table is your name badge. Senior Director of Marketing, Natalie Green. As soon as the champagne toast started, I filled in the rest. Sebastian's eyes had a secretive glimmer that made my stomach turn unpredictably as he delicately clinked his glass against mine. I briefly forgot that we were putting on a lavish masquerade for a group of wedding guests and that this attractive, affluent man wasn't really my date. Guilt gnawed at the corners of my mind. Was Alex's deceit any better than mine? But I thought, this was different. Nobody was harmed by this, and it would end in a few hours. Not much more than a funny story to tell Olivia tomorrow. Nevertheless, Sebastian gave me a sincere smile that made the corners of his eyes wrinkle. My chest began to flutter for no apparent reason related to our made-up relationship. When we got back from the buffet line, Sebastian pulled out my chair with practiced ease. He has immaculate politeness without coming across as forced. He spoke in a low, private voice as we sat down to our supper. With a look of outrage on his face, he confessed, I heard your sister when you arrived. They were unable to locate any rude date comments. Kimberly is that person. With a practicing shrug that didn't quite cover up the old pain, I said, since we were in the same womb, she has been a favorite in the family. She took the lead and has continued to do so. Twins. He raised his eyebrows in astonishment. No, she is 2 years older than me, but I will always remember those extra 24 months of knowledge. I sipped my champagne. I'll stop talking about my family. The man who has allegedly been dating me for 3 months should be familiar with me. He bit into his prime rib and grinned, ignoring the apparent tech billionaire headlines. Made by hand, if that counts. At 13, I began coding. At 25, I sold my first security software business. 3 years ago, Reed Innovations was launched. The billions, but really a few millions, are overstated by the media. Next, how disappointed. It doesn't surprise me that I felt so at ease. I eat my way through Stanford on ramen noodles and scholarships, he added. In Oregon, the parents of first-generation college students were teachers. That explains why riches typically entails a lack of entitlement. I saw firsthand how I developed Tech Vision's marketing division from the ground up. 30% more clients were engaged last quarter. Amazing, he remarked. He also sounded genuine, unlike when my family said it. What do you specialize in? Integrated digital and traditional campaigns that prioritize cross-platform storytelling. With 60 million views, our most recent ad for Horizon Software went viral. His eyes glowed. Yours was the one where the grandmother learned to code in order to build a website for her late husband's memorial. Excellent display of a practical application coupled with an emotional draw. For the next 20 minutes, we talk about marketing strategy, His observations are intelligent and incisive. The topic of independent films came up. Emilia Santiago is an obscure director whose work we both adored, contemporary art. Although he acknowledged his ignorance of experimental installations and travel, he did gather up-and-coming artists. You went to Barcelona to study abroad? His expression was one of genuine surprise as he asked, 2015 spring semester? At Universitat Pompeu Fabra? Indeed. Why? That same spring, I spent a semester at IESE Business School. We most likely didn't realize we were passing each other in Las Ramblas. I said, small world, as I pondered the coincidence. Sebastian stepped up and held out his hand when the DJ declared the dance floor open. Should we stage this as believable on the dance floor? His other hand held mine with assured pressure while the first rested softly on my waist. He led without being overbearing, moving in a rhythmic manner, adapting flawlessly to my movements. As he led me around a bend, I remarked, "You're good at this. Ballroom lessons are required starting at age 12. Directives from Mother." He grinned regretfully. She wanted to bring up a gentleman. She was successful. Before I could stop myself, I said, his gaze locked with mine. There's a spark of warmth in their deaths. It felt more and more right, more dangerous, to feel his hand on my waist. Memories of Alex's treachery suddenly came back to me. The embarrassment of being so easily duped, the shock of seeing text messages, and the breakdown of confidence. I had no time to forget. No matter how real it felt, this was a lie. As the song came to a conclusion, Bradley and Kimberly walked up, but it was clear from his attitude that this was not his plan. You're in IT. Sebastian, Natalie said. Kimberly's smile acted like a predator. The goal of Bradley's father's investing portfolio is diversification. Could you perhaps offer some insights? Their inquiries concerning market trends and prospective growth areas were handled by Sebas with ease. He has both general and specialized expertise. He responded without hesitation to Bradley's increasingly technical questions, and I watched with admiration. How did the two of you reunite? Kimberly inquired, sounding as though she was searching for contradictions. The charity gala for Wilson. Without a pause, Sebastian answered, Tech Vision was represented by Natalie. During the panel discussion, she said something that really stood out to me. After that, I went over to her, and we ended up chatting until the facility was closed. For an instant, I nearly believed the made-up story because it seemed so real. My mom became a member of our group. As she gazed at Sebastian, her eyes gleamed with admiration. You might not be able to make it tonight, Natalie said. Tokyo, perhaps. I went cold. Having said nothing of the sort, Sebastian, however, didn't hesitate. In fact, Singapore emerged victorious in the negotiations, concluding just in time for the final return flight. He touched the small of my back with his fingers. Couldn't disappoint Natalie. Suddenly, my father, who had hardly acknowledged me before, seemed to care about me. Sebastian, Richard Green, he held out his hand. Describe the security software you created. We have been looking to improve our systems at my company. Sebastian was conversing with my father. I saw Kimberly squinting as she watched us, obviously attempting to make sense of the sister she had always felt sorry for, and the woman who had captured the interest of one of the most attractive bachelors in the nation. Sebastian later ordered a glass of Pinot Noir for me and sparkling water for himself at the bar. Guessing my preference right. This is ridiculous. I took the drink with a quiet chuckle. My family has completely changed. All of a sudden, I'm the curious daughter, he said. You've always been the interesting daughter. They simply overlooked something in his tone that caused me to glance up. Saying something to someone you've just met is considerate. He maintained a steady gaze. You're intelligent, quick-witted, and didn't think twice about playing along with a total stranger. That implies both intelligence and flexibility, which are intriguing traits. His phone buzzed before I could answer. He checked the screen and said, Excuse me, I have an urgent business matter to attend to. As he moved away, I saw him talking deeply into his phone. Immediately, Kimberly appeared at my side. Sebastian then read, Examining her manicure, she said, "Don't you think they're convenient? You arrive by yourself, then all of a sudden you're with one of America's most eligible bachelors." Kim, what do you mean? Simply said, "It's unexpected that you haven't brought him up at any of our family dinners. Your mother was unaware that you were seeing someone. Additionally, he just so happens to show up at the most dramatic time. We have been keeping our affairs confidential." My defenses went up. I said, "I don't have to share every detail of my relationship with the world to get approval. Unlike you." The unusual sharpness of my gaze caused her eyes to widen a little. "Whoa, sensitive topic." "No," simply said, "I'm sick of you undermining me all the time. I'm content for once. Why are you unable to just offer assistance?" "I'm on board," she objected. "It just seems strange to me that Alex doesn't—" I interrupted her. "Keep him out of this." With effortless ease, Sebastian came back and put his arm around my waist. "Is everything all right here?" "Excellent." With a cheesy smile, Kimberly said, "Just getting caught up with my younger sister." A slow song started playing as Sebastian escorted me back to the dance floor after she departed. Our talk moved into more intimate ground as he hugged me closer this time. As we moved to the music, he continued, "Families can be complicated. My younger brother, who has watched me work 80-hour weeks for years, is resentful of my success and believes it was given to me. I acknowledged that it sounded familiar. The most difficult thing is that, despite my knowledge that I will never totally gain their acceptance, I still strive for it." He concurred. "The curse of the responsible child, constantly attempting to win love that ought to be freely offered at dessert." We occasionally met and shared a chocolate mousse cake and forks. He offered me a napkin, lingering longer than required as his fingers touched mine. My chest began to get warm just from the touch. I became more and more perplexed about the boundary between reality and the facade. Was it good acting, or was that admiration in his eyes real? After years of being invisible in my family's eyes, was my own increasing desire genuine or just a reaction to being noticed at last? Once more, Sebastian's phone buzzed. His face grew worried as he checked it. "My business partner, Maxwell," he explained. "Our Asia-Pacific division has an urgent situation that requires rapid response." "Go ahead," I said. Being aware of the requirements of professional accountability, his call went on for a few minutes. When he returned, his expression became more serious. His face was etched with apologies. "I have to leave to deal with this," he replied with sincere apologies. "I swear I'll be back as soon as I can." I felt a knot in my stomach. Was this his way out? An easy way to get out of the charade was to have a business emergency. "I get it," I said in a neutral tone of voice. "First, business, Natalie." He grasped my hand. I felt an unwanted thrill up my arm from his touch. "I'll be back. I'm not unusually." He appeared to be at a loss for words. "Believe me, please." Unconfident in my ability to talk. I nodded. I became acutely aware as I watched him leave that I had started to feel something real for a man who was really a complete stranger and a character in a complex fantasy we had made up. Shortly after Sebastian left, the wedding speeches started. Jessica thanked all those who attended. She gazed at Tyler next to her, beaming with joy. The best man gave a moving tribute on love and friendship. Then he lifted his glass. He looked around the room and said, "And if any special guests would like to share a few words, we would be delighted to hear from you." Kimberly's eyes stared at me, her face defiant. She gestured subtly toward the microphone, obviously anticipating my embarrassment as I attempted to justify Sebastian's absence. The microphone started to move around the room before arriving at our table. I went cold. A feeling of panic sprang in my throat. What could I say that wouldn't reveal our deception? It would be a privilege. From behind me came Sebastian's voice. I had observed how silently he had returned, with practiced ease. He took the microphone, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Jessica and Tyler," he said, his tone warm but assured. "Even though I'm only meeting you both today, I can tell you two have a sincere bond. In this world, genuine connections are uncommon. For a time, his gaze met mine. When we come across someone who accepts us for who we are, he accepts our imperfections and pushes us to be better. That is worthy of celebration, worth battling for. He raised his glass to Tyler and Jessica, and to genuine connections wherever they may be found. Sebastian sat next to me and we all applauded the simple toast. The intensity of our gazes clashed unexpectedly. There's an unspoken exchange between us. When the remarks were over, Sebastian pointed to the doors of the patio. Is there any air we could get with the city lights sparkling against the night sky? The balcony looks out over Central Park. The aroma of the garden below was transported by a light May breeze. At the stone balustrade, we stood side by side, in the middle of a packed celebration, momentarily alone. I should make a confession. After a comfortable silence, Sebastian spoke. I intended to remain for the whole of the reception. My heart fell, I get it, for a total stranger. You've already gone above and above. I did not intend that. He gave a brief explanation. I was in the Vanderbilt suite at the hotel for a business meeting. As you arrived, I heard your sister's remark as I was leaving. The casual brutality of it disturbed me. In the dim light, I examined his profile. What was this? Then a random act of generosity. Save the pitiful, unmarried woman? No. He answered firmly. Yes, it was. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully as he stopped. Where did I recognize you last October's Digital Marketing Innovation Conference in Chicago? You gave a talk about using emotional storytelling in digital advertising. You did a fantastic job with your case study on humanizing artificial intelligence. I gaped at him in shock. You recall that your eyes and the green shirt you wore matched? Softly, he said. You conducted the Q&A session with such grace and insight. Even when that Microsoft person tried to sabotage your process, nearly 8 months have passed since then. I responded, amazed that a person like him would have such vivid memories of someone like me. After that, I intended to introduce myself, but there were people all around you. My flight was then rescheduled. He kept his eyes fixed on mine. I think it might have been serendipity when I saw you tonight. I had a hard time processing this new information. He acknowledged that it wasn't totally selfless of you to jump in and pretend to be my boyfriend. I was sorry we didn't have a proper meeting in Chicago. I felt like I was being given another chance before I could reply. Kimberly emerged as the terrace door opened. As always, her timing was flawless. You're there. She spoke in an unnaturally bright voice. Natalie, Mom is searching for you. Something regarding pictures of the family. Sebastian gave a courteous nod. We'll be right in. Kimberly remained still. For only 3 months of dating, you two look incredibly at ease. Seems as though you have known each other for a long time. Or maybe not at all. I felt sick to my stomach. Kim, not right now. Simply put, it's convenient. How flawless everything seems. She looked from one of us to the other, almost too perfectly. Sebastian stood up. Kimberly, are you trying to communicate something? The only difference is that before tonight, my sister had never brought you up. Not once. And all of a sudden, just when she needs to save face, you show up like Prince Charming. I apologize for my skepticism. I sensed that things were getting out of control, so I alerted Kim. Sebastian's mouth clenched. I travel a lot for work. While determining what this is, we have been keeping things confidential. Actually, Kimberly had a piercing smile. The concierge told Mom that he squirted you straight from your business meeting. But why? To the front desk. It seems that you inquired about the location of the Green Mitchell wedding. Her eyes shone with victory. Didn't you two just meet tonight? Sebastian and I looked at each other, captured in our deceit. I believed Kimberly said that. Hold off till everyone has arrived. This is how desperate Natalie was to not be the only one there. That wasn't the case. Sebastian objected. So I decided to intervene. Not Natalie. Good Samaritan. Are you some sort of wedding crasher? Kimberly chuckled. please. I was overcome with hurt and shame. Now, what had begun as a rescue felt more like charity. Stop defending me, please. I stepped back and told Sebastian, the act has finished. Natalie. For me, this evening went beyond mere pretend. Sebastian spoke with a serious expression. Correct. You felt sorry for the poor single woman who was being made fun of by her relatives, I added sourly. You had a fantastic knight in shining armor moment. It's unfair. His voice was full of fury as he fought. That's not what transpired between us tonight. You know, what precisely took place, Sebastian. You played a compelling role in our pretend game. Well done. He insisted that we connect. The discussions we held and the non-acting things we exchanged. Not for me. Anyway, how can I trust anything that occurs when a falsehood is being told? I raised my voice and demanded, I recently ended a dishonest relationship. I don't want to get into another one right now. His face grew softer. I apologize for what transpired with your former partner. Trust is brittle. I recognize that, but... Natalie, I'm not him. You're correct. You're not. I concurred. Before he deceived me. He at least told me who he truly was, as though I had smacked him before he could react. Sebastian winced. Maxwell emerged, appearing agitated, as the terrace door opened once more. I apologize, but we have an urgent matter to attend to. The deal is unraveling, and the Singapore team is on the line. With his eyes darting between Maxwell and me, Sebastian appeared conflicted. Please, let's discuss when I finish this. Natalie, we've said enough. I believe. I put my arms around myself in response. You ought to leave. Your calling is in real life. Maxwell was already guiding him away when Payne's features flashed across his face, discussing contract provisions and deadline extensions quickly. I felt a strange wave of relief and grief as I saw him vanish through the terrace doors. I took a 5-minute break on the balcony to collect myself before returning to the reception. Kimberly and my mother were waiting at the doors when I turned to enter. What's going on? Natalie Diana insisted. Just now. Sebastian and another man departed. Is everything all right prior to Kimberly beginning her exposé? I decided. I just met Sebastian tonight. I acknowledged. Despite the embarrassment blazing in my chest, I spoke steadily. He intervened after hearing Kimberly make fun of me for coming by myself. However, the business emergency is real. He is Reed Innovations' CEO. Diana's pride vanished from her face, to be replaced with disappointment. Oh, Natalie, you would lie to the family, but why, Mom? I didn't plan this. It simply occurred. Nothing just happens. She let out a sigh. Her father and I are concerned about this exact impulsive conduct. Initially, that marketing position rather than going to law school. After that, I moved to Manhattan by myself and ignored her well-known tirade of my alleged shortcomings, observing as Kimberly spoke softly to a cousin who lived close, spreading the word about my embarrassment, no doubt, in a matter of minutes. I was feeling the pressure of pitying looks from everyone in the room. I drank a glass of wine and kept checking the clock as I walked to the edge of the reception. 9:45. It was too early to depart without starting a new conversation. But the weight of my family's criticism, which was now heightened by the discovery of my deceit, made every minute seem like an hour. I decided at 10:30. Jessica was beaming with joy on the dance floor when I walked up to her. I don't feel good. I forced a grin as I informed her. I believe I will go so early. She scowled. Sebastian. What about him? Will he return urgent business matter? I responded that the lie came naturally to him, and he apologized. Knowing the curse of dating ambitious guys, her expression changed. Thank you for coming, then. Having you here meant so much. Despite my personal struggles, I gave her a hug because I was truly delighted for her happiness. Jess, congratulations. Tyler and you make the ideal couple. I could feel the weight of stares and voices following me as I slipped out of the ballroom. I was Natalie Green all by myself again, pitted, and now, on top of that, the embarrassment of being exposed for a desperate falsehood in the same manner that I had come, even terrible. The following morning, dust particles swirling in the air were illuminated by sunlight streaming through the curtains of my flat. I had hardly slept at all. I'm mentally reliving the wedding as if it were a particularly embarrassing film. As I leaned against my kitchen counter, attempting to muster the energy for the day, the coffee maker gurgled. A SMS notification buzzed on my phone. Unknown figure. Sebastian here. Natalie, the wedding coordinator, gave me your number. I apologize for last night, for how things ended between us and for leaving so suddenly. Although that was a real business scenario, I ought to have handled it differently. If you don't mind, I'd like to explain adequately. Sebastian. I gazed at the text, not sure how to react. There was a part of me that wanted to erase it and act as though the whole night had never occurred. Another section questioned what possible explanation he could provide that would have any impact. I put the phone down without answering since I needed some time to think. My doorbell rang 20 minutes later. Olivia had a pink bakery box in her hand and was looking hopeful as she stood in the corridor. She brushed by me into the flat and said, I brought post-wedding debriefing pastries. You like almond products and chocolate craisins. Now reveal everything. How awful was it, even to my own ears? The sound was a little hysterical, but I still laughed. Oh. Where should I start? My family acted just as I had anticipated. I was forced to sit at the table for singles. After that, over pastries and freshly brewed coffee, I described the whole night. Sebastian's grand arrival, our makeshift bond, the sincere one I'd experienced growing up, Kimberly revealing our deception, and Sebastian's sudden departure. Hold on. Olivia raised a hand to interrupt. Read, Sebastian. Sebastian read. Last year. Who gave $50 million to build affordable housing, Sebastian Reed? That is, apparently. And because he witnessed your sister making fun of you, he pretended to be your lover. He later said that he did recall you from a conference 8 months prior, when he had noted the color of your top. I picked at a croissant while nodding. No, it's not a warning sign. It is a romance book. Get to know adorable. He was dishonest. I made the point to assist you. He was candid about why he could have easily kept up the pretense and attempted to obtain your number later, without disclosing that he already knew who you were when she retorted. Even if he meant well, I hadn't thought of that viewpoint. It doesn't alter the reality that our relationship was founded on dishonesty. I'm unable to after Alex, Olivia murmured softly. Alex purposefully betrayed you for months. This is very different. Sebastian was upfront about his intentions right away after fabricating a story to shield you from public shame. I began to doubt my response on the patio as her remarks struck a chord. Had I been too severe, trying to extrapolate Alex's treachery to a whole other scenario? First, I have to deal with the family problem. Whatever might or might not happen with Sebastian, I made a decision. I can't continue to overlook Kimberly's actions. Squeeze my hand. Olivia. It's about time. I suggested lunch at a neutral cafe midway between our apartments in a text message to Kimberly. She easily consented, which surprised me. We sat at a little table opposite one another 2 hours later. We were awkwardly silent for a while. It was embarrassing last night. Stirring my iced tea, I eventually said, not only Sebastian's predicament, but also your treatment of me from the time I got here. The remarks regarding my attire, my career choices, and my arriving alone. I'm done putting up with it. Kim, it's a pattern, with her typical assurance conspicuously lacking. Kimberly gazed at her salad. I understand, she muttered. You are aware. Startled by the absence of defense, I repeated. I was startled to see tears in her eyes when she looked up. I'm envious of you. It hasn't been for years. Are you envious of me? The idea felt so ridiculous. It nearly made me chuckle. You are the lovely and golden child, the one that was successful, with the ideal life and the ideal husband. With her words scarcely audible above a whisper, she admitted, My marriage is falling apart. Widely, for more than a year. He has been having an affair with his helper. It was 6 months ago when I learned. Stunned. I reclined. I didn't know. Kim. Nobody does. We're acting as though nothing is wrong. While collaborating with a marital therapist, her wedding ring twisted. What about your career? You took nothing and created something. Your talent and intelligence are valued. I play tennis at the country club and got married to the son of my dad's golf buddy. Other than being Bradley's wife, I don't have any identity. I countered that your parents always gave you preference, unable to reconcile decades of real experience with this new viewpoint. They had different expectations of us. She made the correction. They encouraged me to pursue studies, marriage, and society. Neither of us had to make a decision. Our conversation lasted almost 2 hours, removing the layers of rivalry and miscommunication that had characterized our relationship since we were young. For the first time, I no longer viewed my sister as the ideal enemy I had created in my imagination, but rather as a complex human being. Finally, she apologized for Sebastian. That was not the right way for me to expose you. It was unkind. I agreed that it was, but perhaps it was essential. We cannot establish romantic or familial ties on false pretenses. Although tentative, her smile was sincere. Is it possible that you will give him a chance? He seemed to like you a lot. He didn't stare at you in a phony way. I must first finish cleaning the house. Sebastian's text message was still lingering in the back of my mind when I said that. My folks' house in Westchester was my next destination. The old colonial appeared just as it did all during my boyhood. Beautiful landscaping, rocking chairs on the porch, just right. By the door, the American flag is flying. Diana responded to my knock with a startled expression on her face. We didn't expect you. Natalie, is everything all right, Mom? We need to chat. Every one of us. It was a challenging conversation. Years of hidden expectations and grudges. Lastly, put it into words. I described how Kimberly and I had been impacted by their disparate treatment, and how their incessant comparison had strained ties between sisters who may have otherwise stood by one another. What was best for you both was what we desired. My mom stood up for me. Her confidence faltered. But it wasn't about what you wanted or what you believed was best, without ever asking ourselves what we wanted. I was surprised to find my father on my side. Diana, she's right. We believe Bradley to be a symbol of security, so we shoved Kimberly in his direction. Take a look at how that is going. Additionally, because we didn't comprehend Natalie's marketing goals, we discouraged them. She's doing well, though. Tears filled my mother's eyes. Natalie, I never intended to make you feel so important. All I was concerned about was you being by yourself. Mom, it's not the worst to be by yourself. It's much worse to be in the wrong relationship. I need you to honor my decisions, even if they aren't in line with your goals. Something had changed by the time I departed. A step toward understanding, not a big apology or a miracle solution. A start, returning to Manhattan via car. Through the car's Bluetooth, my phone rang. The display net displayed Jessica's name. For arriving yesterday, I wanted to thank you once more. Having you there meant so much. It was lovely. Jess, Tyler and you make the ideal couple, talking about being wonderful together. There was a teasing tone in her voice. This morning, Sebastian Reed gave us a call and requested your contact details. When Tyler learned who was calling, he almost toppled over. My heart skipped a beat. Earlier, he texted me. What did you say? Not yet. It's not easy. Jess, life is not easy. She chuckled. However, relationships such as the one I witnessed between you two last night, they are not common. Is it a fake relationship? I saw a familiar face waiting by the entrance as I parked into the parking garage of my apartment building. Instead of the formal suit from last night, Sebastian was wearing jeans and a basic button-down, and he stood with his hands in his pockets. He appeared to have been nervously running his hands through his hair, as seen by the minor tangle in his hair. When he noticed me coming toward Natalie, he straightened. I appreciate you not calling security when you noticed that I was waiting here. How did you find out my residence? However, I asked last night without the charge that could have tainted the inquiry. Jessica, he said. I hope that's all right. I wanted to personally apologize. After a moment of awkward standing, I pointed at the structure. Do you want to attend in my apartment? We can have more comfortable conversations. He accepted my offer of water with gratitude. On either end of my couch, we sat. Unspoken words filled the void between us. He started by saying, I apologize for last night, for how we left things, and for leaving so suddenly. It was a real business emergency. In Singapore, a deal that had taken 3 years to complete was unraveling. However, I ought to have approached it differently. I went overboard. I acknowledged that my experience with my ex had made me extremely sensitive to anything that seemed dishonest. It makes sense. Carefully, he placed his glass on a coaster. The fact is, Natalie, ever since that conference in Chicago, you have been on my mind, though outstanding. Your presentation was more than that. You had an air of genuineness. It's not common. Despite the treatment you received from your family, you looked so noble and vulnerable when I saw you at the wedding. I acted without thinking. Why didn't you make a standard introduction? Hello. Last year I watched your presentation. I would love to talk. He gave a wistful smile. That would have been a reasonable course of action in hindsight. However, I simply responded when I saw your face and heard your sister's remark. For you? I wanted to reverse the roles. The introduction was pretty dramatic. With a tiny smile pulling at my lips, I acknowledged, on the terrace. I meant what I said. The bond we established last night, the discussions, the dances, and the mutual insights. For me, that wasn't pretend. His eyes met mine, real and unblinking. This time, I want to start over right. No pretense, no audience. I observed him. This man who had seen me at a business conference and remembered the color of my shirt, who had transformed my humiliation into one of the most unforgettable evenings of my life, who, 8 months later, sits on my IKEA couch and looks at me as if I were something valuable instead of something broken. I said, I'm afraid. I added barriers after Alex. That way, it's safer. Perhaps safer, but more isolated. He spoke softly. I'm only asking for a chance. Nothing more. Natalie, one actual date, without the turmoil from last night, we'll be able to tell whether there's nothing there. My pragmatic side enumerated every justification for rejecting the unorthodox start. My recent breakup, the difficulties of his well-known existence. But there's more. A section that was too long silent, whispered about potential. One meal. I concurred. A genuine first date at last. Don't act like we already know one another. The risk was worth it for his smile. That would be really appreciated. He made a move for my hand. When our fingers entwined, his touch was steady and warm. It seemed both fresh and familiar, like the start of something real and authentic. After 6 months, I watched Sebastian park his car in the driveway while I stood on my parents' front porch. I had always dreaded Thanksgiving at the Green family home. This year, it felt different. Sebastian came out of the car with the pumpkin pie we had made together that morning and a bottle of wine, even though it was cold in November. His smile warmed me. Are you prepared for this? He inquired. As I will always be. Join me on the porch. Leaning into him for a moment, I answered and then pressed the doorbell. My life has changed in unexpected ways during the last 6 months. At Jessica's wedding that evening, We chatted in a little Italian restaurant in the hamlet on our first actual date until the owner kindly told us they were closing. This was genuine, in contrast to the wedding performance, complete with actual discoveries, uncomfortable pauses, and the tense intensity of a real beginning. We went on our second date to see Emilia Santiago's most recent work at an independent film festival. After arguing passionately over dessert during the third act, we were both energized rather than irritated. I could tell that something unique was happening by the third date. 6 weeks in, when he had to abruptly cancel plans due to work obligations, we had our first serious quarrel. I told them straight out how disappointed I was, rather than letting it fester like I may have in the past. He paid attention, understood how I felt, and we came to an agreement that met our needs. I learned more about good relationships from that resolution than I ever did from years of dating, not because of his riches or prestige, but rather because of how intently he listened as she talked about her love for environmental law. Olivia instantly approved of him. He notices individuals. Later, she told me, truly notices them. I got to know Maxwell, his business partner. Sebastian navigated every day with a proper understanding of the world, the pressure to constantly innovate, the high-stakes judgments, and the accountability for the livelihoods of thousands of employees. Rather than feeling intimidated by his work, I discovered that I was providing him with marketing viewpoints that he actually appreciated. Sebastian included a number of my recommendations in the promotion approach for Reed Innovation's new consumer privacy product launch. I had formally introduced him to my family at a laid-back dinner 2 months prior. Their reception differed somewhat but significantly from Jessica's wedding. Instead of feeling opportunistic, their interest felt sincere this time. Sebastian responded to their inquiries with the same charm and patience that he had displayed at the wedding. But there was no need to create a made-up history because there was no performance. When the door opened, Kimberly was outside without Bradley. They had made the decision to split up after months of therapy, which seemed to have relieved my sister's burden. She was pursuing a passion she had given up after graduation by enrolling in Parsons' interior design program. Cheers to Thanksgiving. She gave me a warm embrace before turning to face Sebastian with sincere affection. From the time you called yesterday, Mom has been discussing your pie. There is no pressure. There was a usual holiday hum within the house. My father gave Sebastian an unusually enthusiastic shoulder clap, and my mother embraced Sebastian as though he were already family. We just learned about your new privacy initiative from Natalie, Diana replied as she ushered us into the living room. It sounds intriguing. The entire campaign was actually shaped by Natalie's internal belief that user trust is our most significant asset, Sebastian answered, clearly proud of what I had done during supper. I saw the minor changes in the dynamics of the family. Instead of veiled competition, Kimberly and I exchanged inside jokes. My mother inquired intelligently about my most recent tech vision efforts. Without the comparison analysis that had been his hallmark, my father showed real interest in both of our careers. My mother leaned in my direction as Sebastian excused himself to answer a quick phone call regarding a system upgrade. He's amazing. Natalie, together, you seem to be extremely content. Yes, we are. I verified the obvious fact that it still surprises me occasionally. I apologize for giving you the impression that you needed someone to feel whole, she added softly. On your own, you were always sufficient. Now I see that. Sebastian later stretched across the console for my hand as we drove back to the city. Your family is truly improving. They're making an effort. I concurred. It's a procedure. In reference to family get-togethers, he remarked nonchalantly. For Christmas, my parents are traveling to New York. They can't wait to meet you. Getting to know the parents. It isn't. It's a significant step. I hope we'll take this one of many. His tone became solemn. We might be going to another wedding soon. I thought. My heart skipped a beat. Oh, Maxwell's getting married in June, he explained with a cheeky grin. But there was a deeper significance in his eyes. Who knows what other ceremonies might be coming up? I gave his hand a squeeze. I feel a wave of contentment. I had entered a wedding by myself 6 months prior, fearing my family's disapproval and sympathy. The connection between my sister and I had changed as a result of that embarrassing night. My parents and, most unexpectedly, me. In the end, being by myself had given me the courage to discover genuine companionship. I finally realized my value, not because I needed to be finished. Everything had altered with that night's unexpected meeting. I was able to save myself because of the experience, not because Sebastian had saved me. I became truly grateful for the moment when my family had made fun of me for coming here by myself, without their condemnation, as the city skyline appeared, glistening against the night sky. I may never have had the guts to hold them to higher standards for both myself and my relationships. The greatest significant changes might occasionally result from the most agonizing experiences. Sometimes it takes being by yourself to realize you were whole all along. Your opinions on this story would be greatly appreciated. Have you ever been undervalued by a family member and then proven them wrong? Or have you ever had a chance encounter that transformed your life? Leave a comment below with your experiences. Please hit the like button if you found Natalie's adventure entertaining. Share this story with someone who might need a reminder of their own value, and subscribe to my channel for more. I appreciate you being here with me today. And keep in mind that sometimes the most awkward situations lead to the most lovely beginnings.